Hello everyone, every page tells a new story. Welcome to the world of endless animation. The movie today begins in the past, where we see the Empire of Atlantis, whose army lives in a state of chaos and fear due to the massive waves heading towards their island. At that moment, the alarm bells ring, and panic spreads among the island's inhabitants. A mother appears to bid farewell to her daughter and takes her special bracelet, and suddenly a strong light is directed at the mother, and her body is pulled away from her daughter. After that, strange rays begin to form around the island. The waters engulf the entire island, and it completely disappears from the surface of the earth. We move to the present time, specifically in the city of Washington, where we see a researcher named Milo Thatch explaining his theory about the existence of an ancient sunken island in the ocean called Atlantis. Milo asserts that the island contained a source of energy greater than any source available in our current era. Milo tries to convince the attendees that the island of Atlantis is real, and not just a legend, pointing out the existence of a book containing maps and detailed information about its location. But it later turns out that the attendees were just workers and not officials interested in what he was saying. Milo receives a phone call from the museum management where he works, asking him to repair the heating boiler engine. Milo later prepares to give another lecture, this time in front of the museum administration, hoping to convince them to organize an expedition to the island. Milo looks at a picture of his grandfather, who was his role model in childhood, and instilled in him the love of exploring the island of Atlantis. But Milo is surprised when he tries to convince the administration again, as they categorically reject him. Milo tries to catch up with the director before he leaves, and he manages to do so, but he faces mockery from him, as the director tells him that the museum supports real scientific expeditions, not myths and fairy tales. Milo gets extremely angry and threatens to resign, but the manager mocks him and leaves. Milo returns home frustrated and hopeless, but he is surprised by an unexpected visit. A woman named Helga appears, introduces herself to Milo, and tells him that she is sent by a very important man who wants to meet him. Milo goes with Helga to a large palace, and he appears fearful and anxious as he enters. Inside the palace, Milo is surprised again when he learns the reason for his summons. Mr. Whitemore, the important man, points to a gift that Milo's grandfather left for him before his death. The gift is a guidebook for exploring the island of Atlantis, the book that Milo had been searching for all along to prove the existence of the island. At that moment, Mr. White asks Milo what he will do with the book, and Milo replies that he will try to convince the museum administration to organize an expedition to the island of Atlantis. Whitemore mocks Milo's response because he knows that the museum administration had previously expelled him for this idea. Milo becomes very angry and assures him that he will go alone until he finds the island, which impresses Whitmore with Milo's enthusiasm and determination. Then, Whitemore reveals that he was specifically waiting for this response and tells him that he has prepared all the equipment needed for the journey, in addition to gathering his grandfather's team who helped find the book, and that everyone is ready for the trip. When Milo asks Mr. Whitemore about the reason for this great support, Mr. Whitemore replies that he had challenged Milo's grandfather in the past, that if he found the book, he would fund his expedition. And now, he is fulfilling his promise and wants to prove his friend's theory and restore his scientific reputation even after his death. Indeed, the journey that Milo had always dreamed of begins, and he sets sail with the team. On board the ship, Milo meets the cook, Cookie, and then the team heads to the submarine that will take them to the ocean floor. Meanwhile, Milo runs into someone named Vinny, who specializes in explosives. Milo later meets with the group leader, then boards the submarine. Mr. Whitemore bids them farewell, and the submarine crew begins to prepare for the dive. The submarine descends underwater to begin the journey. On the way, Milo goes to his room to take a break, but he is surprised by a stranger named Moliere, who scolds him for ruining his clay. The team doctor, Dr. Sakar, intervenes to resolve the issue and introduces Milo to Moliere, the one in charge of the excavation operations in the mission. Meanwhile, Milo receives a summons from Captain Rock, who asks him to explain the course of the journey to the submarine crew. Milo feels nervous because he is not used to speaking in front of people, but he steadies his nerves and begins the explanation. Milo explains the path leading to Atlantis, warning of a legendary monster mentioned in the book that guards the entrance to the island. The crew mocks Milo's warning, but he continues explaining, clarifying that the journey will start from a tunnel in the ocean leading to an ancient road to Atlantis. During the meeting, the team is shocked when they see a large number of shipwrecks from different eras on the ocean floor. And while they are in a state of astonishment, a massive creature appears, circling around the submarine. They can't see it clearly, but they hear its strange sound that they can't explain. And suddenly, this massive creature attacks them and collides with the submarine, causing panic and fear throughout the entire submarine. Milo writes at that time that this creature is a god, But Captain Rock gives orders for the submarine fighters to attack it, and they indeed start hitting it with many missiles, but it is unaffected by anything. It retaliates by firing a large laser beam that pierces the submarine. Unfortunately, this breach causes water to enter the submarine, and before the submarine is completely destroyed, the crew quickly runs and boards the small escape pods, fleeing. After the submarine is completely destroyed, the creature continues to chase them. Fortunately, the team manages to reach the tunnel that will take them to Atlantis, and they quickly enter before the creature can destroy them. They keep walking through the tunnel until they finally reach the path that Milo had mentioned to them. Very few members of the submarine crew manage to survive, and they are placing all their hopes on Milo and his knowledge of the book. They begin to prepare the remaining equipment with them to continue their exploratory journey, and they continue on their way despite the difficulties they face. At this time, unknown individuals appear around them, watching them. Milo remains seated alone during the break, trying to decipher the maps in the book, while the team continues on their way until they reach a dam wall, where they start digging. But suddenly the excavator's engine malfunctions. Milo intervenes and manages to fix it because it is the same type of engine found in his museum. Then, the mechanic Audrey thanks Milo. After repairing the digger, they continue on their way until they reach a strange place, and they decide to camp there to rest and give the remaining equipment a break. And when it's time for food, they call Milo to come and eat with them instead of always sitting alone. When Milo goes to sit with them, he tells them that there is something amazing in this book, which is that there is a mention of something called the Heart of Atlantis. But the explanation suddenly stops, and he discovers that the book has a missing page. After the team finishes their meal, they start setting up their tents, and before they go to sleep, they talk to Milo a little, and each one of them begins to tell their story, thus getting closer to Milo. While they are sleeping, the unknown individuals who had been watching them appear, but they quickly flee after noticing that Milo has woken up. When Milo turns on his flashlight, he is surprised by the glowing insects that, as soon as they touch the tents, start igniting them. This attracts more insects, so Milo quickly runs and wakes the rest of the team to escape before the fire consumes the tents and equipment. While they were escaping, the fuel truck exploded, causing the bridge to collapse and sending them to the bottom of the dormant volcano they were in. Then Captain Rock suggests blowing up the volcano's opening above them so they can escape, and when he asks for Milo's opinion, he doesn't find him. On the other hand, we see Milo unconscious, and when he regains consciousness, he is shocked to find the unknown individuals who were watching them in front of him. One of these individuals removes the mask she was wearing and begins to treat Milo's wounds using a glowing crystal she had with her. But when she hears the sound of Milo's team approaching, she leaves him and quickly escapes with her companions. And suddenly, Milo's team arrives with their massive equipment, and Milo runs after them quickly to find out who they are. At that moment, the team is surprised to find out that this place is the island of Atlantis. Suddenly, the unknown people appear again, and Milo tries to talk to them because he knows their language from the book. The people are surprised when they discover that Milo can speak all their languages. Then, their leader introduces herself and says she is Princess Kaida. She welcomes them and takes them with her to her father, the King of Atlantis, to see them. But at that moment, her father appears, very angry about their presence. And when Captain Rock tells him that they are just peaceful explorers, and they ask the king why they brought weapons with them, Captain Rock replies that it is only for their protection during the journey. The king's anger increases, and he insists that they must leave and abandon Atlantis. Captain Rock asks the king to allow them to stay for just one more day to prepare for the return journey, and the king reluctantly agrees. After they all leave, Kita goes to her father and tries to convince him to let them stay on the island for a little while, as they might help them develop Atlantis. But the king refuses and insists on his decision, telling her that he knows their purpose very well. On the other side, Captain Rourke asks Milo to go and talk to Kita to find out why the king refuses their presence. And when Milo goes to her to ask, he finds that she also has many questions about them and the outside world. Milo starts asking her how Atlantis sank underground and how life continued there for thousands of years. Kita tells him that she doesn't remember anything, except that the sun disappeared and people were screaming and fleeing. She also remembers the crystal that appeared in the sky and pulled her mother away, and she tells him that since then, she has never seen her mother again. Milo is astonished when he learns that Kita has been alive since the sinking of Atlantis until now. At that moment, Kita also asks him how they arrived in Atlantis, and Milo tells her that they arrived with great difficulty through the book left to him by his grandfather. Kita was surprised when she learned that there was someone who could read their language, and that this would greatly help in discovering things on her island. At that moment, Milo is surprised that no one in all of Atlantis knows how to read. Then she takes Milo's hand to an old vehicle and asks him to read what is written on it so they can start it. Indeed, Milo succeeds in reading what is written on it and manages to start it. Milo goes with Kaida to show him all of Atlantis, and she takes them on a tour of the island so they can learn more about the people of Atlantis. And when night falls, Captain Rock's soldiers bring out the weapons they had hidden. At that time, Milo is busy with Kida, who tells him that she needs him to read something written on a large tablet located underwater. Milo descends with her underwater to see what is written on the tablet, and when he goes down and sees the tablet that Kida mentioned, he comes up to catch his breath and tells her that this is the complete history of Atlantis. Kida smiles when she remembers the crystal and the light she saw when she was young before the island was destroyed. Then, Milo dives underwater again to read more, and when he comes out, he discovers that this is not an ordinary light, but the heart of Atlantis, and that it is contained in the crystal each of them possesses, which maintains Atlantis and keeps its atmosphere pure. And when she asks him about its location, Milo tells her that this information was in the book, but on the torn page. And when Milo emerges from the water, he is surprised to find himself in Captain Rook's hands, and then he understands their greed, as they had initially come for the crystal and the money they would get from it. Then Milo refuses to cooperate with them, and they threaten to kill Kida if he doesn't cooperate. They proceed to destroy the Atlantean king's headquarters using weapons. Unfortunately, Milo translates the torn page for them, which said that the heart of Atlantis is in the eye of its king. And when Captain Rourke sits on the king's throne, he understands the meaning of the sentence that says the heart of Atlantis is in the eye of its king and discovers an underground gate. He takes with him Helga, Milo, and Kida, and when they all descend underground, they find the crystal floating above the water and discover the ancient currents of the kings of Atlantis. As soon as Captain Rock touches the water, the light of the crystal turns red, and the crystal begins to pull Kida and attract her towards it. At that moment, the onlookers do not understand what is happening, and Kida begins to walk on the water until she reaches the crystal that pulls her in and merges with it. Then she returns to them unconscious. But Captain Rock doesn't care about what's happening, and he enters an iron box to take the crystal with him. Milo then tries to make them understand that the crystal is not just an ordinary source of energy for profit, and that what they are doing will lead to the complete destruction of the Atlantean people's lives. Captain Rock gets angry and tells him that he will leave him to die here as long as he sympathizes with them like this. And before they leave, Audrey starts to be influenced by Milo's words, gets out of the car, and decides not to participate in the crime. Fenny, Moliere, Dr. Sugar, as well as Cookie and the communications officer named Harcourt also join her. However, Captain Rock doesn't care about all this, leaves them, and departs. And when the crystal leaves the island, the waterfalls stop and the crystals that were with all the people of Atlantis extinguish. Then Captain Rock appears, blowing up the bridge behind him so that no one will try to follow him. At that moment, Dr. Sugar calls Milo to go and see the king who is burning. Milo goes to the king, who asks him about his daughter. When Milo cannot answer him, the king understands everything that happened on his own and begins to explain to them that in times of danger, the crystal chooses someone of royal blood to protect itself, and that what happened with Kida had happened before with her mother. The king asks Milo if the crystal is a living being, and Milo replies that it is indeed alive and has its own conscience, and that what happened to Atlantis thousands of years ago, its destruction, was due to the attempt to use the crystal as a weapon in war. They know that if the crystal remains united with Kida, they might lose it forever, just like what happened to her mother. The king removes his crystal and hands it to Milo, asking him to catch up with his daughter and urging him to save Atlantis. The king dies, and Milo appears lost and unsure of what to do. Dr. Sucrose encourages him, and he regains his self-confidence. Milo finally decides to save Atlantis, gathers his team, and takes them to the ancient vehicles, where he and the people of Atlantis teach them how to operate them using their crystals. They all succeed in flying them and quickly set off to try to catch up with Kida before Captain Rock escapes with the crystal. On the other hand, Captain Rock manages to open the volcano's crater and blows it up with a missile to escape in the balloon he had prepared, where his handcuffed box is attached. After that, he and his team are surprised by an attack from Captain Rock's soldiers, who have a plane launcher with them, and they start shooting at them. But then Vinny intervenes and showers them with laser beams from his vehicle, leading to a major battle between the two teams. At that moment, Milo agrees with Audrey and Dr. Sugar to unlock the box, while he and the rest of the team distract Captain Rock. But unfortunately, Captain Rock and Helga uncover their plan, and Helga starts throwing bombs at them, forcing them to flee. Milo reduces the altitude of the balloon with his vehicle, and Helga helps lighten the balloon's weight so they can escape with it. At that moment, Captain Rock also drugs Helga and throws her off the airship, but she doesn't die from the fall. After that, Helga vowed to take revenge on him and shot the airship with fire, leading to its destruction. Despite Captain Rock's failure in his plan, he remains determined to kill Milo because he is the one who ruined his plan. Before he could kill him, Milo stabbed him with a bottle containing the crystal effect, causing the crystal effect to spread from the wound he received, and his body suddenly froze. The airship's propeller falls on him and breaks, and Milo and the box fall away from the airship. Suddenly, everyone is shocked when they discover that the volcano has started to erupt due to the explosions that occurred inside it. Everyone gets into the box in their vehicle and quickly escapes from the lava that is chasing them. As soon as they arrive in Atlantis, Milo quickly opens the box, and his hand emerges, united with the crystal. A light emanates from it, illuminating the inscriptions on the island, and the statues of the kings of Atlantis rise around it, lifting them into the sky. Very large beams of light emanate from it, reaching the statues underwater, causing them to move and rise from the water. The statues begin to surround the island from all directions, protecting it from the volcanic lava. And after the volcanic lava calms down, the power of the crystal appears and shatters, and the waterfalls start moving again. Finally, Kita descends from the crystal safely, having retrieved the bracelet her mother took from her thousands of years ago. At that moment, everyone is amazed by the beauty of the rest of Atlantis Island, which had been hidden underwater. Tears stream down all of them, and they all board the vehicle that will return to the surface of the sea. They keep trying to convince Milo to return with them, but he insists on staying in the place where he has spent his entire life searching for it. Also because he sees that the people of Atlantis need someone who can read their language to teach them how to develop again. When the team returns to their homeland, they agree with Mr. Whitmore not to tell the world about what they saw, so that no one covets the island again. They tell everyone that those who did not return with them died in accidents, including Milo. After a while, Milo sends a small crystal with a picture of his grandfather to Mr. Whitmore in appreciation of his support. Milo and Kita raise the statue of the king, Kita's father, to place it alongside the other kings of the past. Finally, a new era of Atlantis development begins, and the crystal returns to the sky once again after being buried underground for thousands of years. The movie today begins with a giant cargo ship floating in the middle of the ocean, and suddenly a massive octopus-like monster appears and starts attacking it, and indeed, it manages to destroy the ship. On the other hand, we move to the island of Atlantis where we see Queen Kita, who informs us that the island of Atlantis has developed significantly thanks to Milo's knowledge through the use of the Heart of Atlantis crystal and the continuous efforts of the Atlanteans who have returned to focusing on education once again. Milo and Kita sitting together, planning the development of Atlantis, when one of the guards enters and informs them that intruders are approaching. Milo and Kita go out and prepare their weapons with the guards to meet the intruders. And when Milo looks at them through the telescope, he recognizes them and reassures himself that they are not enemies, but rather their friends who helped them in the past. Indeed, the people of Atlantis welcome their friends like heroes because of what they did for them in liberating Atlantis. Later, Milo himself visits Mr. Whitmore in Atlantis and shows everyone the extent of the development and changes that have occurred on the island since the last time they left it. After everyone has eaten and rested, Milo asks Mr. Whitmore about the reason for the unexpected visit. Mr. Whitmore tells him about the monster that is destroying the cargo ships crossing the ocean. Mr. Whitmore continues, saying that they believe the monster attacking the ships is the same one they encountered when they first explored Atlantis, and that they came specifically for it because they think this monster is connected to Atlantis. At that moment, Kita enters and tells them that there could be many monsters in the ocean besides the one they encountered when they arrived in Atlantis, because her father had created many monsters like this one to use in the war before their island was destroyed. And she shouts with Milo because she wants to end the problems caused by the war fought by her father and her country. Indeed, Kita boards the ship with them to begin their journey in search of this monster, and she tells them that the emergence of the crystal from beneath Atlantis might be the reason for the appearance of this monster. At this moment, Finio and Oi appear, preparing their weapons to confront the monster, and when Milo sees the monster's picture on the news, he tells the team that this monster is not similar to the one they encountered at the entrance of Atlantis. And while they are talking, the monster suddenly attacks the ship from the lower gates of the ship. Vinyu and Oi start attacking it with explosives and try to drive it away from the ship so they can board the submarines and expel it. And indeed, they manage to do it. And when it's Milo's turn, the submarine's holder breaks and it sinks into the water, disabled, with the water starting to seep into the submarine from all sides. At that moment, Milo asks the rest of the team to hurry and save them before the monster finishes them off. The entire team gathers around Milo and Kita's submarine and starts launching missiles at the monster to drive it away. After the confrontation, everyone confirms that the monster that attacked them is not the same one they encountered at the entrance of Atlantis. After that, the ship's captain calls Milo to inform him that he will take the ship for repairs after the battle. Milo replies that they will wait for the Fisherman's Island, which is nearby, and when they arrive at the island, they find it completely deserted and shrouded in fog. And then they meet the island's mayor, who tells them that as soon as the ship is repaired, it would be best for them to leave immediately. Soon, the team arrives at the hotel where they will be staying, and when they see the hotel owner, they ask her about the mayor of their village and his strange behavior towards them. The hotel owner tells them that everyone says he made a deal with the devil, which was that he would live forever but forgot to ask for eternal youth. And she warns them not to challenge him, and that they should listen to him and leave as soon as he asked them to, but they were ignoring her advice. And when night falls, everyone goes to watch the mayor to discover his secret, but after a while, they get lost on the way due to the fog. Milo sees distant lights, so he and his team walk towards them to head to the hotel, but they suddenly fall off the edge of the mountain. After several attempts, they miraculously manage to survive, and at that moment, they discover that the lights they were following were just an illusion. The lights disappear, complicating the situation even further. On the other side, we see the mayor going to the hotel owner and asking her to burn their clothes to hide their traces, but he is shocked when he finds them all back at the hotel and still alive. The mayor leaves angrily. At that moment, Milo goes to the innkeeper and asks her to tell them more about the devil's deal she mentioned earlier regarding the mayor. The hotel owner explains to them, saying that the fish have abandoned the sea for a long time, and that the island was threatened with destruction with the mayor due to his deal for the souls of the people in the boats in exchange for food and preventing anyone from the village from leaving. After Milo finishes his conversation with the hotel owner, the whole team leaves her, pondering the source of the food for the island. At that moment, Molière intervenes with his expertise in rocks and writes about the existence of a hidden cave entrance in the mountain. And when everyone enters the cave, they discover the mayor's men storing the sunken ship's boxes. And there they are surprised when they see the mayor standing near the water, where the monster emerges in front of him and takes the sunken ship's boxes as if he is controlling it. They discover the truth that the mayor controls the people and the monster through hypnosis. And while they were thinking about how to distract the mayor to stop his control over them, they were surprised by Audrey, who had also been taken over and was heading towards the monster. Milo runs quickly to distract the mayor, while the rest of the team goes to save Audrey. Vinny goes and attacks the monster with the explosives he had, and then the monster leaves Audrey and quickly escapes into the water. Everyone runs to save Audrey, and they quickly board the submarines to chase the monster before it escapes into the vast ocean. But, unfortunately, when they reach the place where the monster was, they find that it has already left the cave. They start engaging with him, and during the fight, Vinny is also taken over and he begins launching missiles at the rest of the team. But Molière manages to wake him up before it's too late, and thus they confirm that it is the monster who is magnetically controlling them, not the mayor, because the mayor was too far away from them. They all run away from the monster after initially chasing it, but they realize that they only have one missile left. The idea comes from Lavinie, which is to lure the monster towards the previously sunken Mellow submarine, which was filled with missiles. And when the monster reaches it, they blow it up, and their plan succeeds. The monster is indeed destroyed, and the mayor who made the magical deal is also eliminated. Finally, the villagers return to see the sun and life again after the fog has lifted. They also start preparing their boats for fishing, as the fish have returned to the sea after the disappearance of the Char monster. The villagers thank Milo and the rest of the team for saving them from the mayor's and the monster's spell. After that, everyone gathers again at Mr. Whitemore's house to bid farewell to Milo and Kita before their departure. But at that moment, they receive a call from Dr. Sakar, who informs them of problems in the Mexican desert. When they arrive there, Dr. Sugat informs them about an explorer named Uncle Sam, who was attacked by wolves in the form of a sandstorm. Dr. Sugar asks Milo and Kita for an explanation about what is happening, because they found an artifact with Atlantis symbols with Uncle Sam. Indeed, the team heads to Uncle Sam, who tells them that he saw sandwolves like ghosts, and that they attacked his hut and caused him numerous injuries. And when they ask him about the location of the artifact, Uncle Sam tells them that he found it inside a pot placed in a box that was in his hut. When the team arrives at Uncle Sam's cabin, they find it covered in dust, and they don't find any trace of the wolves or even the box Uncle Sam mentioned. So they return to Uncle Sam, who indicates that he suspects a traitor named Carnaby and believes that he might be the one who stole the box. And when the team goes to this merchant's store, they find many artifacts there, and the team begins to believe Uncle Sam's words about him. In the store, Kita finds a statue resembling the Guardians of Atlantis, and she buys it from Carnaby for a large sum. When Milo Carnaby asks the merchant about the source of these artifacts, the merchant ignores the question and does not respond. And when the team asks about Uncle Sam's box, Carnaby denies knowing anything about the box containing the pottery. And when the team leaves his store, Milo wonders how Carnaby knew that the box contained a vase without anyone telling him. And while they were walking in the desert, Audrey notices that they keep seeing the same man by the roadside, but suddenly he appears in front of them and introduces himself, saying his name is Zaka Shi. He rides with them on their way, and at that moment the Sandwolves appear to them. Zaka speaks to Audrey saying, "The power of our ancestors will continue as long as their secrets are preserved, and you are the one who understands this the most." At that moment, while they were preoccupied with the storm surrounding them, Zaka vanished from before them, and the Sandwolves entered the car, leading to an accident that caused Audrey to scatter. At that moment, the team is shocked when they discover that they have returned to Carnaby's shop again. They go to him and ask if he knows someone named Zaka. Carnaby replies that he has many statues of him, but Milo remembers that he has read about him before, and that he is known in legends as the Spirit of the Wind. Carnaby replies that he doesn't believe in superstitions. And while they are talking, Molière discovers that Uncle Sam's box is in Carnaby's car, thus confirming to everyone that Carnaby is the one who stole the box. At that moment, Molière intervenes with his expertise in rocks and identifies the location from which the pottery came by the type of soil residues present in it. Molière describes its location to them and directs them to the right path, and the merchant Carnaby is with them at that time. And at that moment we see Zaka watching them from afar, and they are unaware of his presence. When everyone reaches the cave entrance that leads them to the place where the pottery came from, they are surprised by a storm of sandwolves that attack them and block the cave entrance, preventing them from entering. But Molière digs a large hole and they enter it, discovering that they are in an underground place filled with relics from ancient and diverse civilizations. In this place, Kita finds a statue of the Crystal Guardian from the island of Atlantis, and she realizes that her people have been here for thousands of years. Suddenly, everyone feels a strange gas around them, and before they lose consciousness, they realize that Carnaby is the one who did it to prevent them from knowing the location of the artifacts he sells. And before leaving, Carnaby closes the cave door and leaves them tied up inside, so they remain trapped forever. But at that moment, Milo intervenes and quickly wakes his pet, who unties itself and the rope it was bound with. Milo runs quickly to reach the dynamite before it explodes, and after they all get out, the Sandwolves attack them and disappear in front of them. After Milo places the pot in its place, Zaka appears and tells them that he cannot allow them to leave to keep the secret of the place. Kita refuses to reveal the secrets of their civilization, and the rest of the team also refuses to speak, even after the Sandwolves surrounded them from all sides. But then, Zaka steps out and tells them that he was testing them to ensure they wouldn't reveal the secret of the place. Zaka reveals that they know Kita and her civilization, and that she is the Queen of Atlantis. Kita tells him that she hopes their civilization and Atlantis will return to the light, but she fears the misuse of the crystal. Zaka replies to her, saying that the decision is hers, then chooses to return with the team to Mr. Whitemore's palace to bid farewell to Milo and Kita before their departure. But at that moment, they are shocked to discover another problem, which is that Alexander's ancient sword has been stolen from the palace. And when they pinpoint the location of the theft, they find footprints of a man and a dog, and they notice that the door wasn't broken from the outside. They also find traces of lightning inside the house, even though the roof is intact, and thus, it becomes more complicated. At that moment, Milo goes and asks Mr. Whitemore about the reason someone might steal such an old sword. Mr. Whitemore replies that he knows who stole it, and he suspects a businessman named Eric, who, after the stock market crash and losing almost all his fortune, became isolated in the old castle of Askla that he bought before declaring bankruptcy, and went mad because of what happened to him. Mr. Whitemore continues, saying he was surprised when Eric called him 2 weeks ago and told him he had dreamed that he took this sword. And when Milo sees the picture of the sword, he remembers that he has seen it before. After Milo researched the sword's history, he informs his team that the stolen sword is a historical weapon from the island of Atlantis, and that Eric can use this tool to summon the forces of destruction. The team decides to head to Eric's castle in Iceland to reach him before he destroys the world. Indeed, everyone boards their plane and quickly heads to Iceland, and when they arrive at Eric's castle, they are shocked to see it flying away from the ground. Then, they realize that he has started using the power of the sword. Suddenly, the mountain in front of them transforms into a monster that attacks them with very powerful ice blocks, stopping the plane's engines, causing them to crash into the snow. But they exit the plane safely, and when they confront the snow monster chasing them, Vinny hits it with a missile, severing its arm. However, they are surprised to see the arm regenerate quickly. The team quickly escapes, but the monster manages to freeze them in place, and Eric unfreezes them to start talking with them. Then, the team notices that Eric is a madman, believing himself to be the true owner of the sword, and he talks to Kita as if she were his daughter. Kita takes advantage of the situation and snatches the magical sword from him. But at that moment, Eric's dog intervenes and attacks her. Unfortunately, Kita returns to the sword once again, Then Eric uses the sword to move the ground beneath them and throws them out of the castle. But they do not give up, so Moliere digs a tunnel under the castle to bring them back. When Kita wakes up, she finds Eric has dressed her in the princess's attire, still pretending that she is his daughter. Kita takes advantage of the situation and gives her team a chance to re-enter the castle. Meanwhile, Eric takes Kita to the volcano to use the sword to summon another monster. On the other hand, the rest of the team sneaks to the castle gate to reach him quickly. But when Eric sees the team, he uses the sword to unleash the second monster from the volcano. Milo and Kita face them, and in this battle, the sword falls away from the two monsters. Unfortunately, the fire monster manages to catch up with the sword and takes it with him to escape. Then, the two monsters come together to destroy the world. But at that moment, Milo has the idea of blowing up the ground beneath them so that water meets fire, causing a conflict between the two. The team unites and successfully executes the plan, and during the battle, the sword falls away from the two monsters. Kita runs quickly, grabs it with the strength of her crystal, and then successfully drops the castle on the two monsters. Finally, everyone returns to Atlantis with the sword to restore it to its rightful place. Kita stands among her people and tells them that her father was right when he hid the heart of Atlantis to protect them and the world from its great power, but he was wrong to think that humans would only use it for evil. And through her journey around the world, she realized that they were capable of using it for good, just as they had done in the past to develop Atlantis. Kita announces that Atlantis will return to the light and use its magical sword to bring the city of Atlantis out of the cave, where it has remained for thousands of years. At that moment, the Guardians of Atlantis appear and fire beams at the island, causing the volcanic lava within it to shake. The fishermen who were at sea are also freed when the island emerges from the waters before them. And finally, the people of Atlantis witness the sun that has been absent from them for thousands of years. And they all celebrate because they will finally return to share the world once again. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on the fun. Get ready to relive your favorite cartoons and discover new ones with us.